saw a quote today that really got me thinking, and it's this. It's from George Carlin, and it says, most people work just hard enough not to get fired and get paid just enough to stay. Now, when I heard this quote, the first thing I thought about was all of the transitions we go through, whether it's trying to close a big sale, maybe we're moving, maybe we're changing careers, maybe we're changing relationships. And when I heard that quote, it made me think of some other statistics. Did you know that 80% of us stay in jobs that we don't like just for the healthcare benefits? There's got to be a better way. But the bigger question is, why do we stay in situations that don't make us happy, that leave us feeling tapped out versus inspired and fulfilled? When I started thinking further into this, I thought about this concept that I often share with people in my classes, and it's this. I call it the curve of change. And what the curve of change is it looks like a curve, but let me explain it a little bit further. You see, when we want to make big changes in our life, a lot happens emotionally. Number one, we might get excited. We might say, I really want to quit that job. I'm going to find something better. I'm going to find something that I am bringing more value to the table. Maybe I am going to get paid more money. Maybe I have more advancement opportunity. So we get excited, but then we begin to start this job search or career search, and the stress is what these X's represent. Our stress level increases because we realize that this is going to involve us making some changes. And then the worst part happens. We get up to this top part, and I call this the terror barrier. Okay, that's actually a Bob Proctor term I've heard. But what happens is we come up against this and we do one of two things. We either push over to the other side, or unfortunately, what happens more often than not is we actually decide to go backwards. We come up against that barrier and we decide, I just can't make that change. I'm going to stay at that job that I'm at. Well, guess what? We end up even more unhappy than we already are. So how can we get ourselves over to the other side to happiness and fulfillment? I want to share with you a couple ideas to get you through to the other side and to get through that barrier I just talked about. Number one, remember that uncertainty is the variety of life. It is the spice of life. So what do I mean by that? I can think of all the years I was in sales, and one of the things that stands out to me the most is I never knew what I was going to walk into, right? I traveled Monday through Friday. I was flying to different cities. I was meeting with different customers. Didn't know what traffic was going to be like. Didn't know what I'd encounter on the way, and I didn't know what would happen once I met with this individual. Would it be a good meeting? Would it be a not so good meeting? But I embraced that variety because it was exciting and it was actually adventurous. So if we can remember that change can be exciting, it can be adventurous, that's the first tip. The second tip to think about is this, is that in order to grow, it is always going to require us to get outside our comfort zone. Think about this for a minute. Has there been anything in your life where you were so afraid to make this change and you finally made the change? Maybe you left a relationship. Maybe you stopped a habit that you've been trying to quit. Maybe you lost or released some weight. But once you got through and achieved that goal, I'll bet you felt a lot better about yourself. You probably had a big boost in self-esteem and self-confidence. Now, the third thing I'd like for you to think about is this, is that when we change, we fulfill our dreams. Think about that. Everything that we want is on the other side of this barrier we call fear. So if you think about that in and of itself, for me, makes it worth pushing over to the other side. And trust me, I've gone through a lot of transitions in my life, and even the past 2 years, some really big ones. I moved across state, I got in a new relationship, I got engaged, making a big career transition in the next 2 months. So there's always change happening. But if I apply those 3 tips I just talked about, I have found that my stress level can go down. And yes, it's always going to feel uncomfortable, but when I apply those tips, I find myself getting over to the other side much easier. So embrace the uncertainty. Remember, variety is the spice of life. And remember, in order to achieve your dreams, it does require you to power through, and to get over to the other side is the key to success.